think it made Ted feel good.
Everybody wanted to do an interview with Ted McCarty. That was a big deal. He was not young. And so he would be almost asleep in between meetings. And we would whisper it, when he came to NAMM, we'd whisper in his ear, "Time for an interview, Ted." And he'd go, and he'd wake up and he'd do the whole meeting and fall back asleep. He was a champion. He would bring himself to moments. For me, it was an honor and fun to bring him to all the NAMM shows. I did have a sense that I was his caretaker in those moments and that I was his host. As a matter of fact, he used to room with me in my room. I used to take care of him. It was very intimate in terms of, making sure that the journalist could have his time, making sure that he was taken care of, making sure that he was treated like the king that he was, making sure that his knowledge base had a reverence to it and people treated him well.
I think Paul almost felt like my father was a grandfather to him. I think Paul really appreciated my father in a way that somebody else really didn't. And he did many things for my father that my father appreciated more than I can tell you.
This video, Remembering Ted, I think is the right thing to do. It's on time. And Ted was kind of like the grandfather I never had. They allowed me to be at his bedside with a guitar. I sang him songs while he was passing away. It was really sweet. In the end, he was family. I was the one that got to wheel him around in the wheelchair the last time at NAMM, and people came out of their booths to say goodbye because they knew it was the last time they were going to see him. He was the forgotten man who wasn't forgotten when he left NAMM the last time. He was sharp as a tack till the second he died, just razor sharp.
The last time I saw Ted was at a 4th of July event that PRS was a big part of, in charge of the music, and Paul asked me to play the Star Spangled Banner. I remember starting the song, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ted get up, stand up, and put his hat over his heart. And it was just a very touching moment. And it was all these thoughts were going through my mind as I was trying to remember the right notes to play. And I remember Ted was old school. He was a gentleman. His work ethic was unrivaled, I think. And the universal respect that people in the industry had for Ted spoke to what kind of man he was. And so it was an emotional day, and unfortunately that was the last time I saw Ted, but he did write me a note once and said thank you for your help on the McCarty model, and just a true gentleman.
I remember obviously when he passed away. I remember the company. Paul was obviously suffering that loss. And even people that didn't have a deep relationship with Ted, I would say we collectively suffered that loss. There was a understanding through the company of his importance. There was a photograph that we had, and all of us that were working here then signed that photograph with a little note to him. And it was a moment for sure. It was a pretty heavy thing.
The sign on the wall when you walk up the stairs at PRS says, "God bless Ted McCarty." So it's kind of the way it was. We all signed it. If somebody passes away in their 60s or their 50s, it can be very painful. But he was in his 90s, and I went to his 90th birthday party, and there were all 70-year-olds there. I said, "What happened to all your friends?" He says, "I outlived them all. I had to trade him in on 70-year-olds. He didn't have any of his friends. He'd outlived all of them. And that I had to really get my head wrapped around. But something, I got to watch a champion in his last quarter of the football game. I don't know. I didn't handle his death very well. It hurt a lot more than I was willing to admit, and I had to deal with it maybe 5 or 6 years after he died. I finally dealt with it. I think it was such a natural thing when he passed away because he was so old that it didn't feel wrong, but I did miss him. But every word I said in this interview is true and heartfelt.
I think my father's legacy, shall we call it, is really very well known in the musical world, particularly the guitar world, more than I would have expected. And I think probably what my father would have hoped for. So I think he was always very pleased that Paul became the avenue for his achievements to become recognized. I think my father knew they were good things he had come up with, good ideas, good innovations, but I don't know that he felt that anybody really appreciated them. So to him then, well, if they're not appreciated, they must not be all that important.
I think Ted is not underappreciated at all by people who know what he did and are aware of him. I think he's he's revered in that regard. But again, I don't think Ted really wanted to be in the spotlight. And I think he just wanted to make great guitars. It wasn't like about him for him. And I think he was quite comfortable playing somewhat of a background role in terms of publicity.
So to me, it's an honor that we were fortunate enough to be able to work with Ted McCarty. Again, it's that like detail and passion that he had just, rolls downhill into Paul and then into everyone here. I look at PRS as like a perpetual startup, and I think that drive and innovative energy just keeps propelling us to move forward, and I think Ted would be pretty proud of where we are today.
I really feel like this group of people under Paul's leadership, we've kind of carried that same spirit on, and it's really great to have Ted's namesake as kind of part of that history continuing on as well in the McCarty guitar.
One thing I really admire about Paul and PRS is that we've kept such a close relationship with Ted's family after he passed. It would be so easy to not stay connected to the family, to just say, we make McCarty instruments and keep on doing that. But the fact that Paul had such a personal relationship with Ted that went way beyond business, I've heard him say he's like a grandfather to him, and to take a relationship like that and make sure that the integrity of that is maintained by staying in contact with the family, is one of the reasons why I love working here.
I didn't really understand how much Ted McCarty Sue Davis carries until she came here to do the filming for this video. I thought that there was a real reverence for her in the factory when they figured out who she was. I thought it was cool. And when I introduced her as Ted McCarty's daughter, people would go, "Really? Wow, so nice to meet you." I mean, it's such an honor. She carries such a legacy,
I think all through my father's association with Paul, he recognized that Paul really cared about him as a person. And when he came out, when my father was at the end of his life, I think he really appreciated that Paul made the effort to be there. And I think that was a very close and, if you will, loving relationship, far exceeded the business relationship. That's how it struck me.
Ted McCarty was probably the personification of the teacher and Paul the student. From my perspective, Paul has been a teacher since the day I met him, and he's been a student since the day I met him. So he's been always both. I was fortunate to come into the company near the very beginning of it, but I came in as an entry-level position building guitars. I was coming into a company as an ex-musician and ex-roofer construction person who was a sponge of knowledge, and Paul was my teacher. So in 1985, Paul taught me how to use a bandsaw. Paul taught me why it is that you can't rush neck manufacturing. When I was making necks in 1987, I vividly remember him coming back and yelling at me because I was taking too little material off of a neck blank on a 45 relief cut, and him just livid that I would be changing the process because it would make the neck go through a little bit faster. But to his credit, he took the time to tell me why that what I was doing was compromising the instrument, and it was a teaching moment for him. When Paul was by himself in a shop making guitars one by one, it was probably as easy as it was ever going to get for him. And as the company grew and more of us came into the company, the amount of education that he had to impart was huge. So teaching not only how to make an instrument well, but why it is that you make an instrument the way that you make it to make it a good instrument, that is a high order, and he did a great job. He was a fantastic teacher. He still is a fantastic teacher.
Paul is, he has been a student of guitars and guitar building. I think that one of the things I came to find out about Ted, the creativity that he brought in some of these designs and patterns, was geared towards advancing the guitar and trying to take care of problems or address stuff that artists had related to him that they would like to see as improvements on the guitar. So there's a lot of similarities. My years with working with Paul, I look at the work that Paul has done with different aspects of the guitars over the year, our improvements on bridge design, nut design, and I think, to a large degree, Ted McCarty was trying to do the same thing in the early 50s and really throughout the golden era of electric guitar manufacturing.
I think Paul is kind of carrying on the legacy of Ted and Leo. I mean, I think he is the Leo Fender, the Ted McCarty of our generation. I can't really think of anybody else who has had the impact in our generation on electric guitar making as Paul. I mean, he's definitely carrying that tradition on. Having worked closely with him for almost 40 years now, I think I'm qualified to say that. I've learned a lot.
You know why I couldn't see your things earlier, but because I think the internet is kind of lagging. Now I see it. I'm okay. How are you? I'm watching this what you call this, the PRS.
About guitar building in the 36 years I've been here, and that is in large part due to Paul wanting to share. In the same way that Ted was Paul's mentor, I think Paul is a mentor to all of us here. He shares information on stuff. He wants to teach. He teaches us all stuff all the time. If he discovers something new, he wants to tell people, to share that information. And now, like, he's been teaching us things just so that if he's ever not here, we know more about what goes on in his mind.
I've had the opportunity to learn directly from Paul Smith as I was working here on the line, and then he's gone out of his way to schedule time with people who work here on how to build electric guitars and why we have done all the things we have done and the elements of design and electronics and the type of materials that we use, and been a real mentor in guitar building to me and all the associates that work here.
I've had the great fortune to be at the factory many times, and I've never been at the factory where Paul hasn't taught me something, and he's very eager to show me new things that PRS is doing to improve, and I know that his passion today to improve and find, it's the relentless pursuit of tone. That passion hasn't dimmed, and he's still got the same hunger to make things right, and will go the extra mile is an understatement, the extra 1,000 miles to help me get, if I have a request for, could we make it a little more like this or a little more like that, or I'm having a slight issue here, he will immediately, it's like I get the feeling he's going to drop everything and get right on it.
The thing that ties Paul and Ted together so much to me is the sheer joy that I imagine that Ted felt, and that I absolutely know that Paul feels when somebody asks them about their life's work. When we are doing anything with product development, I will always ask Paul why we're doing something or get him to explain something to me.
Okay, it's really late. I think there's only 2 people here. I'm just watching this PRS history, and I didn't see the sign in there on the chat. You know what happened? Okay, I can see it now. I can see it now.
Because I want to know why Paul wants to do it. I want Paul Reed Smith to explain that to me personally. Because what a missed opportunity that would be if I didn't. And every time I do that, he'll come into my office.
Hey everybody, this is just a test. I'm just testing my live on YouTube.